crack pot.
Crack pot. Here we are.
Crack and pot.
Crack,
But I
yeah.
loved his excuse. Yeah, I smoked crack, but I was drunk at the time.
Okay.
Let me call you sweetheart.
Okay, and
says.
that's
Good evening, ladies and
that was for
gentlemen, and welcome to the Fun Show here at BATV. We're back.
Mr. Mackey. We did that.
Having taken a week off for
Yeah.
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day,
for you,
which
sir.
is
Ron, thanks.
celebrated here at Brookline Center.
Did you go to the march?
I couldn't go because there was illness at home. So
Oh,
for
I'm
me,
sorry to hear that.
I
Sorry to hear that.
I was going to go.
That's the first time I remember that you didn't make
I
it.
haven't. That was a tough one. Yeah, she
They
fell
must-
down.
They must have.
Okay.
They must have missed you. That's like the. That was like the group who decided that they were having their last annual toast.
Right.
That there weren't going to be enough of them to do it again. In any case, behind the keyboard, our maestro and master here, Mike Sallen, and we have Susan Harrington sitting between us today on relatively short notice. Susan's still catching her breath.
But she's going to run out to do the other job in the studio.
Yeah.
there, I guess.
So,
You can turn a few switches.
she gets a signal the sound is out of balance, she'll disappear.
You got your
Lisa.
sneakers on.
my
You're all
sneakers
set. You're going to do
I'm
track
Arch
shoes,
O'Reilly.
Okay.
And we are appearing on our new set here at the Fun Show. Our ace crew has come up with these lovely gobos behind us and our banner here in front. And
We got a cameraman there that we met.
we have
before.
two cameramen here
Well,
tonight.
we got one that we met.
We have one that we met.
Mackey, Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
And
Well, we have two cameramen, both named Chris, interestingly
that's
enough.
right. Chris is on
Yes,
the other
yes.
one. Oh, well, that's Chris too.
Camera Chris.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So much for anonymity.
Okay.
Yes.
No, we like to.
Well, that's pretty anonymous.
Recognition is important.
You can
okay?
maintain anonymity
Yeah.
as long as you're behind
Yeah,
the cameras.
that's all.
You
Okay.
set on things.
All right.
So what's happened in the 2 weeks that we've been away?
What's happened in the 2 weeks?
Well, wait, Brookline JP Patriots teams A and C became Eastern champions, and they are moving on to the next round of playoffs.
Cool. What happened to B?
Okay.
They didn't win in their last playoff
Wait a
game.
minute, you're
No,
not
it-
supposed to talk about sports on this show. You
No.
know that.
Wait a second.
Okay.
This is the team.
people
Talk about the
people
winners.
up in arms about talking
this is,
sports.
This is the team that's part Brookline, part Jamaica Plain.
Yep.
Is that what it is?
Okay.
It's Pop
Very
Warner.
good. I
Very
don't know
good.
why we never get any of these kids on our high school team, because our high school team has been mediocre at best.
Okay. What about the president apologizing for President Obama? That is apologizing for the affordable health care.
What other president do you think would have leapt to mind?
Well, I mean, all these people. There was a big brouhaha about that.
Well, of course there was a big
No,
brouhaha.
I'm talking about all the several million letters that went home to all these people that the insurance was canceled.
Yeah,
And,
right.
and so then former President Clinton comes on and says, wait a minute, you promised that nobody was going to lose their insurance, you said. He says this to the open air on television, and what about all this stuff?
Well, obviously, we shouldn't have hired a Canadian company
We shouldn't
to
have.
build a website.
That's number one,
And,
but they got secrecy out of
And
it,
it
right?
now turns out that this company doesn't have a very good track record.
No.
For
Okay,
Are
but
they in
got.
Toronto?
Well, that's another
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, I think they're run by the mayor of Toronto.
Mayor Ford was. That's right. He was probably on
a crack organization,
a
as we say.
crack trip when he was. But no, he was
Crack
drunk.
crack pot.
He was drunk.
Crack organization.
Oh.
But I mean, the thing is, as I understand it, the people whose policies were discontinued were people who had bought essentially useless insurance to begin with, and
Well, the insurance companies don't like that attitude. You know that.
well, no, if they can charge you something for nothing, they're very happy, and that was one of their principal objections to the Affordable Care Act, because it was intended to stop them from selling you nothing for something. But now he's
that's a
caught in a
personal-
catch-22. No, it's not a personal opinion. It is a fact. It is a fact.
Well, the insurance company leaders don't like
that
to hear
we
stuff
had
like that.
We had
do
a
they?
very strange thing, which was called a bipartisan agreement as to what the lowest possible level of insurance should be. And anything that didn't meet that bipartisan agreement was
there.
supposed to be terminated.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's a personal opinion.
Okay,
I'd say
but they really didn't push that on the air. The president didn't really sell that idea that much.
well, that's quite true. And the idea was
Okay.
that this now let's also not forget that in all the states that made their own insurance exchanges, as all states were meant to, they've had no problem whatsoever. So where this problem has actually happened is in the right-wing red states who refused to create insurance exchanges and relied on the federal insurance exchange. So the people who have been hurt are the people who, if they'd gone to the polls and elected real leaders, they wouldn't have had the problem.
Did you ever go on the $10 trip to, I don't know if it's just still 10, to New York City with Lucky Wah?
No.
No? Well, they're back in business.
That came as a big surprise to me.
About 10 or 11
The Chinese
bucks
bus
each way.
company's been allowed to go back in business.
So
Well, they said they spent $1 million.
I mean they cleaned up their act.
Well, they fixed all the brakes on all the buses too.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
And they've done something so they won't catch on fire in the middle of the highway.
That's and the air conditioning will work once in a while too.
You know where they're all located? They're located down there at like 1010 Mass Ave,
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen.
down in that neighborhood.
And Marty Walsh is the new mayor in Boston.
Yeah.
Well, not yet, but he's the mayor-elect.
Elect. Okay.
Yes.
And then in Lawrence they're having a recount for the mayoralty.
Well,
You-
wouldn't
you
you?
got
I think he lost by
57 votes.
Latigua
62 votes or
versus
something like that.
Rivera. That's a pretty close election of
That's a-
15,000 votes.
It's a very close election.
Yeah.
The theoretical winner of the race seems to have his nose out of joint that the mayor wants it recounted, but I mean, what's he expect?
I was going to say, why he's surprised, I don't know.
It's going to cost money to recount. I know
Oh, they
that.
said they've already spent so much money just guarding those. They said
That's true.
those
Yeah.
ballots have got more coverage than
It'll
some things in the archives in Washington, D.C.
It tells you something about Lawrence, that they got to lock them up, weld the door, and post a 24-hour guard on it.
So they were grinding down all these elephant tusks locally, huh?
Locally?
Well, they had a bunch of them in this area
I didn't
the
know
customs
that.
crowd.
I didn't know that. What was it? Something like 60 tons of tusks.
Right.
They
tusks.
grounded them down into chips. I'm
think
wondering
that's-
if they're going to sell them out to some Oriental garden or something.
Oh, I was going to say,
like
are they
that.
going to use them for gravel somewhere? Well,
Well,
I
That's
can't
all they're worth
imagine.
now.
I think it's terrible.
And some
though.
of them were, already, carved and fancy stuff.
These
and stuff.
people.
Well, if it saves one elephant, it's worth it.
All right. I hope it does. Okay. The and then we have the FBI agent. This is a week ago, who his car was broken into in Andover.
oh yeah.
And they found those two high-powered rifles or something. This
FBI
kid found them.
The FBI is having a little bit of trouble getting a public relations break around here, right? Speaking of which,
Yeah,
was
we could have him on
really-
the show here, that FBI agent with the guns to show us.
yeah.
And
you
the
think,
ki- and they
think
gave-
he wants to come on?
They had a $20,000 reward.
One was
also.
a very, very high-tech sniper rifle.
Yes,
And the
okay.
other one was just your basic
All right.
M16. But
Okay.
here's the thing. It makes me, it puts me in mind of the Whitey Bulger trial and how absolutely incensed I am that they let that gangster Stephen Davis speak at that trial.
Well, then wait a minute. They had Billy Bulger at the end on television, the brother, and they asked him how did you feel about all this?
Yeah,
And he said, well, he's still my brother.
yeah.
He said, well, all those people he murdered, that he's still my brother. That was his response.
It's true.
So they were one of how many kids in that family?
I think there were three brothers.
Three.
That's all?
Three brothers and a sister, I think.
So it was
too.
just 4 kids.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I think.
but I'm pretty sure there were just 3 brothers.
And Billy's had.
And the other brother is so anonymous that he actually was able to attend the trial without standing
yeah.
out.
Right.
Wow.
That's true.
But those so-called victims should never, ever have been allowed to speak at that trial.
Well, I don't know. The judge thought it was a good idea, though.
Well, so what?
What do you mean? She's the judge. She makes the rules up for that case, doesn't she?
And no judge has ever been wrong, huh?
Well, I mean, you say she's wrong, but I thought it was a good idea for them to get it off their chest once and for all, how they felt about this guy.
Well, why didn't you go in and talk then?
I just had some work with Billy, that's all. I had some disagreements with Billy, but
I mean, why didn't they just hand out tickets in the street and let people come off the street?
well, I think they should have put them in stocks and let everybody walk by and toss stuff
Oh,
at them.
okay.
Wait, weren't they?
All
But wasn't it the people that spoke? People that were direct family members of persons he was alleged to have eliminated.
That he was not convicted of having done.
Oh, you mean okay?
What I'm talking about is
Yeah,
the so-called victims
11
who he
families.
was not
Oh,
convicted of
okay.
were allowed to speak. And one of them was this guy, Stephen Davis. Do you remember seeing
Yeah,
him on the news?
we know
Think so,
about
yeah.
him.
He is
Okay.
absolutely as big a gangster as as Whitey Bulger. And to make him
Yes, but
get up
he's
there
in
and
the-
act like
But he's on the other side of the court. He's not in the box.
No, he's not.
So what are you picking on him
He
for?
apparently should be, because he's a gangster.
Oh, he's a gangster. Easy for you to say.
Well, he is a gangster. He's a gangster out of his own mouth.
Yes, but he didn't say he murdered anybody lately.
He
did
said he would rather be known as a murderer
Yes.
than as a rat.
Okay. Okay. Not to change the subject,
But
But-
to change the subject.
but in Virginia, look at all these Democrats who won there.
Right, all the constitutional officers are now Democrats.
Did you like that? McAuliffe and the lieutenant governor and the attorney general.
So
they
what do
all
you think's
won.
going to happen to Virginia now?
Well, it's very interesting because...
Well, the women get a break, I hope.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be nice.
But it's very interesting what's going on in that part of the country, because as North Carolina sinks into the primordial ooze with the crazy right-wing government it has, South Carolina and Virginia is getting to be more and more enlightened. And so it makes me wonder whether there is some large immigration shift of the crazies from South Carolina and Virginia into North Carolina.
Well, I don't know about that, but a San Antonio bus in Texas, that is, hit a house. I thought that was kind of sad.
It was not that surprising in Texas, though. They have no zoning, so it's
They have
entirely
houses in the
possible.
middle of the road.
It's entirely
Okay.
possible the house is in the middle
Wait,
of
but
the
a
road.
house. I'm sorry. You said a house hit the bus or a bus hit the house?
The bus hit the house.
Well, depending. I mean, in where I live, there's cars that have careened into storefronts
Yes,
because
true.
he's taking these turns too sharply or too quickly.
There was an old woman that drove into what did she drive into and died after the accident?
I don't know, but there's this rash of late of people who seem to forget which pedal is which.
That's true.
You know, and they always say, well, they hit the gas
Yeah.
instead of the brake.
Okay.
The pedals are a little different, at least on my car.
Now, what about this Ford guy in Toronto? You guys didn't
He's
say
built tough.
Ford
He's not-
Cup's very good.
much. He's not quitting.
He's got
Oh, no.
EcoBoost, right?
He's not quitting.
No,
What
why
about-
would he quit?
He's like a never-ready bunny.
No, he says he owes it. He was elected, and he owes it to the citizens of Toronto to complete his
Well,
work.
maybe-
How
there.
long ago was he elected, though?
I
Like
have
when
no
is he
idea.
up for
That's an
when is he up
interesting
for
question.
re-election? I mean, did they just get
I
him?
mean, the city council has no way to get rid of him. I don't know.
It's an interesting question. None of us know when he was elected. How
No, I
long
don't
he's
know.
been the mayor.
I don't want to know.
He wasn't doing any of this Michigas before.
Who? Oh well, I don't know. A guy who says I should be forgiven for smoking crack because I was drunk at the time didn't just come up with a
I
problem.
mean,
And then they accuse him of chasing that woman who works in his office there and wanting to have some acts with her.
oh yeah.
That was terrible.
I
yeah.
miss
Plain
that.
language.
And his brother looks just like him.
Yes, but it's a
And
little
and
smaller.
and to tell us what state our civilization is in at the moment as a result of all this theoretically embarrassing muck. He and his brother have been given a reality TV show.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Well,
looking forward to not seeing it.
They've been rewarded with a reality TV show.
I can't believe that guy.
Well,
though.
they figure he's just as interesting as Justin Bieber.
Do you guys know that the government has said that the trans fat is bad for us? That we shouldn't eat it, and they're telling all the restaurants across the country.
Was this with the same announcement that said the sun comes up in the east?
Is it
Yes.
the restaurant or the bakeries?
Both.
Because
I think.
I
I think both. I don't. But what about what if you like trans fat? Why can't it be a personal choice? Or what do you have to?
We don't have personal choices anymore.
Oh, we don't.
No.
Okay.
There used to be a time that you could smoke, you could eat what you wanted,
Yeah, I
you
know.
could,
You could
you could drive your motorcycle without a helmet.
I
you
always
could
liked to have a cigar at night. I really did used to like to smoke a cigar, but
Well, the thing of it is, it's something that you do that's not going to impact others is one thing.
Well, I'm pretty sure your trans fat wouldn't impact others.
Right, but so I'm saying in terms of if you're smoking out in public, you've got second-hand smoke.
Secondhand smoke.
And then with the motorcycle, if you slip or whatever, something happens to your motorcycle, or a vehicle hits you, or even by an error, or you slip on the motorcycle and fall, then boom, your brains are splattered all over the road. That means some poor slob comes along and
Has to
drives,
clean it up.
well, drives behind you, and they're traumatized. So things that don't impact someone else.
okay. Do you think that genetically engineered ingredients should be labeled on bottles and cans of food that you buy off the shelf?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay. How about you feel that way?
Well, they don't just appear in bottles and cans. I mean,
Yeah, true.
They appear in
bags,
produce and meat and every
packages,
department.
Yeah, everything.
So
We
the
should
thing
know.
is, do you ever read a label on your package
I
of
always
pork chops?
do. Always.
Really?
Yes, that's what I always. And
What
when
do
I
they
was
put
in
on
schools,
your package of pork chops?
in Portchester,
No, pork chops. Your
Pork
package
chops,
of pork
yeah.
chops.
3
Or
pounds
your-
of fat.
Or your
okay.
Well, you don't eat pork chops, do you?
Sure, I do. I eat pork chops. I'm reformed.
Yeah, reform.
he's reformed.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's reformed.
All right.
That's
know
the
what's
other
a-
white meat. What are you talking about?
You know what reform
thing you'll
means?
be picking
That
on me
means
for-
bacon's good.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's.
All right, it's now time for the BATV Unrehearsed Thespians presentation for this week from deep in the vault. Actually, not so deep. This one pretty much came off near the top of the thing. And ironically, through various circumstances, this literally is totally and completely unrehearsed. So you'll see how we do in a cold reading, ladies and gentlemen. It is entitled Complacency.
Wait a minute. You got a lot of experience at this kind of thing.
Cold reading?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
You're a professional.
It's still cold reading.
Is this gonna take us more than 10 minutes?
More.
Then we better hustle.
Better hustle. Okay. My cousin lost his home last week.
Foreclosure?
Yeah, I paid too much.
Credit was too easy.
The agents got greedy.
Few regulations.
So, where's he living now?
With relatives.
Still got a job, I hope.
Actually, that's folding too.
Company merger. More like a hedge fund buyout, though.
Then lots of layoffs.
And the stock rises.
Get back to profitability.
What if what if he's a GI in Iraq?
Some kind of legislation to help him, I guess.
Well, I don't understand it.
At least it postpones the auction.
Can't have the family on the street, though.
Well, we already got plenty of homeless.
1/4 of vets, or maybe more than that.
Too bad.
It's all the war on terror.
George is protecting us.
What about FEMA's traders?
Yeah, why can't poor people live in them?
Trailers, that's trailers.
I
Trailers,
know.
trailers.
You said traders. Huh?
I
You
said
wrote it?
traders.
You read
Yeah, I
it? You
wrote
got it
okay.
wrong.
Yeah.
Bureaucrats.
Yeah, thanks. Well, something about cleaning septic tanks, huh?
But they're empty.
Companies got swollen contracts.
More corruption.
Scandalous waste of our money.
Who cares?
Taxpayers should demand answers.
Yeah, well, merchants are worried.
Not if post-Thanksgiving sales are big.
The Puritans' public day was one of fasting and repenting.
Well, you can't make any money that way. What about poor old Big Turkey, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, there's no food stamps, but it was a spiritual event then anyway.
Yeah, prayer was important, but all that food.
That came later.
Lincoln encouraged its celebration.
The Civil War didn't provide much joy of its own.
Not much now either.
Not much now either, huh? And at Gettysburg. Country seems resigned now, though.
Our president isn't changing his agenda.
Stay the course for victory.
Generals say the surges helped.
Yeah, casualties continue.
4,000 dead.
Over 28,000 wounded.
Hey, we're bringing democracy to the Middle East.
Until 2008.
It wasn't supposed to be this way.
The Iraqi army and the police training was inadequate.
Shiites versus Sunnis.
Revived Taliban fighting again in Afghanistan.
Shh, Iran's nuclear program grows daily.
Iraq's parliament appears powerless.
But France's new president loves us.
And Germany's Merkel finds us valued partners.
England's Gordon Brown and EU reappraising us.
They're nervous about China and Russia.
Well, we're more than just overseas real estate, you know.
We got a guy over there that does real estate. That's always been being developed.
With climate change.
From global pollution.
Polar bears could become extinct.
Too much carbon dioxide.
Oil prices going through the roof.
Nazi scientists made gas out of coal, you know.
I think ethanol is better.
The electric car was even better, too.
It all doesn't seem to matter much.
Democrats passed bills for troop withdrawal.
And the president vetoed them.
Well, I like new Attorney General Mukasey, the last one under Bush.
Is surfing safer than waterboarding?
You'd have to ask our senators.
Okay, so we're changing our primary to February.
Well, everybody else is doing it.
Anyway, Hillary needs a breather.
Over driver's license for illegals.
We still can't close our borders.
Don't bring that up again.
It's a big issue.
No, it's a clever Republican strategy, in my opinion.
Well, where are we eating tonight?
I don't think stand-up comics are funny.
Really? Maybe they should just sit down.
And play a banjo.
We've got enough troubles.
And these guys talk mostly sex and race anyway.
Rapping and rap and rock music.
Careful there.
Right, okay.
Kids enjoy it. Sometimes even I do.
Never catch me at one of those concerts.
Well, what's wrong with Louis Satchmo Armstrong?
He was great, but he's dead.
So are Mozart and Beethoven.
Kids still like Tony Bennett.
Yeah, and he's appearing in Worcester. But the president and the vice president went to Iraq.
Big deal.
They're younger.
Some conversation.
I'm not buying toys this year.
Grow up.
It's the lead paint.
Would you show some optimism, please?
And patriotism.
Right. We'll muddle through.
We always do.
But it's depressing, isn't it?
Not if you're a Republican.
Blackout.
Blackout.
Well,
There we
did.
go. From the vault,
We got
folks.
through it. Okay. we got time. We got time here to get into some other things.
We do.
Yeah, we do. We got this.
Incidentally, I'd like to ask all our listeners out there who have some sympathy for people who have disabilities and things to please boycott Clear Flower Bakery. Clear Flower Bakery
That's a Brookline
has
bakery.
taken a specific and intentional position of insulting anybody with gluten intolerance or celiac disease, and when it was pointed out to them, they chose to do nothing about it. They have a sign in their window that says, if you can't take the wheat, get out of the kitchen. And I think as long as they have that up, we should not buy bread from Clear Flower Bakery.
Why don't we sing this over there?
With you.
We could sing that in front of the bakery. They might like that.
I think I'd go in front of the bakery with my own sign that said, this bread costs too much bread.
That's
So wait,
all
so-
right,
so-
okay, there's a new Broadway musical.
What is it?
It's called A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. And
Sounds like a good show to me.
it's supposed to be better than that other murderers.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney, yeah, I'm
Really?
serious.
Who
yeah.
wrote it?
I just saw it in the New York Times, and I haven't got that down. They didn't give
A
it name.
Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder.
Yes.
Is it a musical?
Yes.
Yeah.
And according to this critic, it's great. Great music, great songs.
Oh, wow.
A lot of fun, and you should see it. That's what he says. Well, like you'll
It's better.
on.
It's
Okay.
better than Paul Simon's musical.
Okay.
What was his music?
Cape Man
Now there's a
was a
German.
disaster.
There's a German the German custom officers have confiscated 1,280 paintings, infamous paintings, by the way, that considered degenerate art when the Nazis were running things in Germany. The guy's name is Cornelius Gerlet. He's the son of a art dealer in Berlin, I think. I'm not sure, who collected all these paintings from guys like all these modern art artists. He has all these paintings. Well, anyways, he was selling them. They'd been confiscated from the homes of people all over.
They were
Germany.
confiscated by the Nazis, is what you're telling
Probably
us.
by Jewish business people.
And they were stored where?
in his room.
In his room?
In his
for 60
apartment.
years?
And he was selling them off, evidently, whenever he needed money.
They've been stored in his apartment for 60 years?
Yes, that's what it
And
said.
he's now selling them off?
He's been selling them off for 60 years.
Oh, I thought you meant he
Okay,
just started selling.
something like that.
And
Anyways,
somebody finally caught on.
Wow.
and he said it at the end when they caught him. He says, "What do these people want from me?"
Money.
I thought that was
So
kind of.
so this is
He had all the paintings in his apartment.
So
or
much
condo.
for the vaunted German efficiency.
wow.
Right?
Well, maybe there were other people collecting too. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. Some guy's
Okay.
selling purloined paintings for 60 years out of his
Then
appointment.
there's a guy named J. Craig Ventort. He wants to fax life from Mars if it's anything is discovered there. He's a maverick scientist who wants to. He says he wants to detect life on Mars and bring it to Earth using a device called a digital biological converter.
Okay.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It would determine the sequence of the DNA units in an organism's genome and
Careful with
transmit
that word.
it. What?
Be careful with that word. So he wants to wait a minute, so he wants to send life.
No, he wants to send a machine to Mars which will analyze the genetic material and send the genetic code back to the Earth. It's not really it's not really as scary as it sounds, because
Okay.
all he's doing is sending.
How long would it
you
take
know,
him
a
to get
sequence.
the machine there?
Well, we don't know all of this yet.
Well, if he has to send it himself, it'll take him forever, I'm quite
he
sure.
might not live that long.
But if you notice that there's this whole group of people who analyze all the Mars rover pictures, and they say, that rock isn't a rock, it's an iguana, and that rock
Yeah.
isn't a rock, it's a turtle, and that rock is a centipede. Everything that comes in front of the camera that looks vaguely like it might be a critter, these people are claiming that the rover is taking pictures of living things on Mars.
I won't get into buprenorphine, which is an opioid used to treat opioid addiction. I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
That's a big subject.
Yeah, okay.
We agree with you. Don't get
okay.
into that.
I don't want to
So
get
I'll give
into
you
that.
30 seconds to get into something else.
But I could quickly
Until we can pronounce it, we're not getting into
I
it.
could quickly bring up the fact that Albania says that they're not going to accept those poison gas.
Right.
They don't want it in their
Do you
country. They
realize
were
how
gonna-
long it's been since Albania was mentioned on our show? Albania gets very little time on this show.
Yeah, well, it's a nice little country.
I think
they hate everybody, don't
I
they?
think
or something like
Albania
that?
was
I don't
actually in one of your plays years
We
and
had-
years
we
ago.
did have
Well, let's wish little Caroline Kennedy Schlossenberg
Yeah.
good luck over there.
Good luck,
Especially since it looks like she'll
Yeah,
be over
good
there
luck.
to the
Good
50th
luck,
anniversary.
Carolyn Kennedy.
That's
I
right.
hope
On
hope
the
she
50th
likes.
anniversary
You
of,
think she likes
this
sushi?
Friday.
of
or
her
she-
father's shooting.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Okay, you want
You
to?
think? Okay.
That's interesting. She decided to go now, right?
Good.
Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. We'll Good night, everybody. Good night, Irene, from the Fun Show here at BATV. And we will see you next week.
Thank you for my halo, Doug.